Dun, dun, dun. I love that. That is so cool. Gotta make sure I mute this because sometimes it just jumps me live, and then
Yeah.
I'm sure we're live right now because it says meeting 11, but I gotta dun, dun, microphone.
Yeah.
There we go. So, man, this will be fun. So, Clint and I have been chatting back and forth, and we like, oh, we should talk about ego. And he's like, I've got an ego for that. And I said, I do too. And he says, well, let's see. We could have an ego that goes on and talks about twin flames connection, any of that. I guess let's talk about all the various forms of definition of ego. And that's probably a good place to start. Hi, Clinton. Everybody say hi, Clinton. They love
Hi, everybody.
They really love you, man. They see a lot of messages for you. So hopefully you're keeping up with that, maybe responding to them.
Oh, I don't see anything actually, to be honest.
That's your ego.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell everybody hello in the chat and that we will be talking to them here. Everyone. Oh, I guess I should have put on my glasses. All right. So what is your definition of ego?
Oh, I don't know if it's a good one. Ego is always something that is all about pride. How you want someone to see you, or how you want someone to perceive you. It's an image that you create for yourself to make yourself seem better.
Okay. Deep inside of connection, I've experienced a more global or worldly way of looking at it.
Right.
And I've seen this and I've seen it said, and I know that Eckhart Tolle said it. I know that was the guy who passed. It's a lot of spiritual teachers have always said ego is identification with the mind.
Right.
So, everything the mind tries to tell you have an identity or a self for is all mind created. And once you identify with it in that way, I feel like you start to change how you view certain things or how you view and experience the way you think.
Yeah.
You ever had thoughts that tell you what somebody's thinking of you or what they feel about you?
Oh, all the time.
And how do you believe that?
Yeah, you just do.
Right. So you don't see even the energy you put into that.
No.
But if we look at what we learn as men growing up, what were you taught about the way you think? Especially when it comes to thinking about how people view you, how people experience you, how people feel about you, what they think of you. And the more you're ingrained to do that, the more connected or disconnected you become.
Oh, definitely disconnected.
That deep growl tells you a lot about yourself, right?
Yeah.
So what kinds of things has your ego done to you when it comes to relationships or connections?
Oh, well, like what it hasn't done. It's always, so you get into an argument and you've always got to be right.
What do you love about right? What do you love about being right?
Oh, nothing. Not anymore.
Wait, there's an ego in you that is determined, that is always in the know of being right.
Yeah.
And you don't like that part of yourself.
No.
So when you let that ego out, how many people can actually like you? If you don't like it, what do you think that's doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So why do we need to be right?
Because we fear being wrong.
Okay. Okay, give me an example of what the fear of being wrong. Give me an example of how that could actually happen.
Okay. So I can remember a few arguments I've had with several exes, and
What was the argument? Is the argument over feelings or thoughts?
Oh, definitely thoughts.
Mm.
And then it becomes that, well, I know you're thinking this, so fuck you. I'm not playing that game. I'm not falling into what you think or I'm not falling into the thinking of what you're actually what you're saying.
Mm.
I just want to be, no matter what, even if I'm wrong, I just want to be right.
Right. And I think I spoke about this years ago. We have ability to be right about being wrong.
Yes.
We struggle to have the ability to be wrong about being right.
Yes.
And it's like a breath of fresh air one way, whereas the other way takes away your air.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, through the last 3 years, I was definitely in the energy of wanting to be wrong about being right. When it came to illness, when it came to getting through a pandemic, when it came to just, staying fully connected, I wanted to be wrong in the aspect of, if I disconnect, we won't make it.
Yeah.
Right. So I said, if I need to trust connection. I need to trust my ability to stay connected. I need to trust my ability to connect to all of you to get us through the connection, so we could get to the healing space of connection, because there's always a deeper space in you that needs that healing and connection. Now, my masculine ego and my feminine ego both were at odds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I would watch what she would go through, and I would absorb the feeling of it. And of course, as a masculine energy, I want to, protect and defend and fight and be all, and kind of like what it looks like is not what it actually is in the experience. The experience says you have to hold on to her, not fight what she's going through.
Yeah.
And that's that. So that was the clash in my masculine, when it came to thought, when it came to ego, when it comes to all. I mean, you'll be in that space, and then it's interesting because you attract more so in the fight mode than you do in the surrender mode.
Yeah.
And I realized in my feminine, if I was fighting, there was an attraction to the fight. But if I was surrendering, there was no attraction at all.
Yeah.
There was embracing, there was love, there was connection.
Yeah.
But people look for the fight.
Yes.
In masculine energy, we think we've got to stand in, and it doesn't matter, man or woman, whether you're in your masculine or your feminine is the difference. Because the masculine mind and what we're taught to think about is the way that we show up in the masculine mind. We're going to be strong. And when did being strong ever get you loved? When did being strong ever get you vulnerable? When did being strong? You see, all of the things about being strong is nothing more than the ego mentality of a self that identifies with being the shield to everything and pushing through for everything.
Yeah.
You need parts of that, but you don't need all of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's basically how that keeps going back and forth. What did I do with my glasses? Okay. Let's see, somebody has posted. Hi, Lee and Sherry. How are you doing today? We're doing all right. Good to see you, David. Hello, Pillars of Light. And Aberdeen is here. Yay. Okay, so um we got 11 watching. That's awesome.
Ooh, awesome.
Yeah. Ooh. Well, we just did this impromptu. Let's jump on and go talk about this because it's important and it needs to be somewhere in the shuffle. You know, if you come onto this channel, you experience sharing a nice connection, but you experience a connection to yourself too. And that was the purpose of the channel. And it will continue to be the purpose of the channel. But I felt like with you, we could actually talk about that defensiveness, that man's way of thinking isn't what we want. We don't want to think the way we do. We're taught to think the way we do.
Yeah.
And the ego that comes from that isn't even a part of us. It's just what we have been taught. Mm-hmm. It's hard to let go of what you've been taught.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And I think it's even worse when you don't tell anybody what you've taught yourself inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you learn to tell yourself inside that someone cared about your feelings?
I never did.
So what kinds of thoughts came from that?
Harden up, get over it.
Right. And on the outside, it looks like you're cold-hearted.
Yeah.
On the inside, it's pure pain, pure hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I went through a long period of where, and I mean a long period of where I never smiled. Like years, I never smiled.
Really?
Yeah.
You got a great smile.
Hey, I know that now.
What the? Not all the time. Well, so what broke that? What broke that for you?
Starting this.
Yeah.
This journey started it.
And when you say journey, you have a connection, of course, that came into your life. And what did you find that your masculine ego did to you in that connection?
Hey, dude, back up, brother. What the fuck are you doing?
You're open to get hurt. You're open to get hurt. Right? Yeah. And you didn't want that, but that's what ended up happening.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Like I could feel myself. I could feel myself just wanting to pour myself all over my connection, and yet my ego was saying, "You're gonna fuck it up, dude. You're gonna make a complete mess of this." And she's not gonna want to know anything about you. She's just gonna, as soon as you start talking, she's gonna be out the door. So keep your distance, play it cool, and it'll work out great. Wow, it worked out, but not great.
Well, did you find that you did? And this is probably the trickiest part to understand about ego is the thoughts themselves and the thought patterns in which that they actually show up. They show up based on feeling, and the feeling triggers the response. Yeah. Not the other way around. Your thinking does not trigger your feelings. It's just you weren't taught that way. But the way that we feel, we experience it is that once we actually get that thought, the feeling was already there, and then the feeling continues to pummel the feeling. Does this make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you look at when you walked into this connection, there was a feeling of, in masculine, the ego itself said, "Ooh, I have feminine energy that feels like it's just like my feminine energy." Mm-hmm. And your masculine said, "Yeah, but your feminine energy abandoned you." Right? What the fuck are you doing? That's where that came from. That's where that came. And literally it said, "This time I'm in control."
Yeah, that's exactly what it did.
And this is where control becomes more painful, because what do you need control for?
Yeah, we don't.
Right? But when you tell yourself you need to control the connection, and you need to be supportive in the connection, you need to show up in the connection, you actually are getting further and further away from connect. Especially if you didn't tell them that your back past, your backstory, the things that have happened to you, and you've never resolved it. You've left it hurt, right?
Yeah.
You literally start going off of the hurt from connection rather than the love and the feeling of connection.
Yeah.
And, your ego is designed to keep you in a box based in that, and give you an identity that surrounds the box, but not necessarily what's in the box.
Yep.
Have you ever trusted being connected to someone while you're hurting?
No.
So when you feel hurt, let's say you have a thought that says you feel hurt, and then you have a thought that says, oh, maybe they want me to be this. Then when you try to show up like that, and didn't tell them about the hurt,
no.
Hey, should they trust you?
No.
Because you just stopped trusting you.
Yeah.
Right. So now you're teaching them how to ignore the hurt.
Yeah.
And you have a thought pattern that's kind of set up to design to keep that going.
Yes. Yeah.
And the more you get in your head about it, the further away you push them. Not intentionally. Yep. But that's kind of what the masculine ego will do.
Yep.
Because we were taught, oh, we got to be strong. And if they can actually sense or feel like, okay, is there something going on? It seems like you're pulling away. We're pulling away because we're hurt.
Yeah.
And we've never learned to express that hurt or speak from that hurt. So now all we know is we got to be strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you tell yourself you have to be strong, isn't that the same way as saying I've got to reject what I'm feeling?
Yeah.
How many people actually know that?
Probably only you.
The ego itself is always looking for a self that has less than more. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
When you were taught to think, you started thinking less about your feelings and paying more attention to other people's feelings.
Yes. Yep.
And this, in the response to, when you have a father in your life or don't have a father in your life, that's the space you would learn that. You would learn how to show up for a person's feelings based on how your masculine energy has shown up for feelings.
Yeah.
The further away you are from having that kind of connection with your father, the further away you get in feelings.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how to get into my feelings. I know I have feelings. I just don't, they really can't even identify with what they feel, because for some reason, when there's a single parent, you end up not being asked about those feelings.
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
So all of your thought patterns will be based in that oneness and without. So what feelings do you allow yourself to be connected to after that happens to you?
None. The only feelings I ever remember, well, emotions more than feelings, was anger and sadness.
And when did somebody ask you why you were so angry and why you were so sad?
It wasn't so much that they asked me, they just would tell me, sort your shit out.
And then left you with that shit.
Yeah.
And after you get that piled up many times, it just, of course, gives more energy to your anger.
Yeah.
How do you love yourself through that?
You can't.
Is Kant an ego thing?
Yes.
Or a feeling thing?
It's an ego.
Right. So once you've labeled Kant on top of some feelings, you never sort yourself out, do you?
No, you don't.
You disconnect from yourself.
Yep.
And the next time that person sees you, do you have a mask on?
Definitely.
That's the ego.
Mm. Yeah.
The ego is synonymous for making up different identities based on your hurt level.
Yeah.
Right? You know,
Yeah.
it's the one, I got to push through. I've got to walk through this. Not, hey, I'm hurting. Can you just sit with me? Can you hold my hand? Can you be there for me? We don't do that.
No.
So you have thought patterns to keep you from that.
Mm-hmm.
And even those thought patterns, you won't let yourself see through.
No. No.
And even worse, when you're trying to use sight to feel something, that's where you've really totally disconnected from yourself.
Right.
A lot of people pay attention to what they see now versus what they actually feel about what they see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Men do that a lot.
Yeah.
Masculine energy has been, and that's known. It's just it's the further scope away from where connection resides.
Yeah.
Fear. The fear ego is probably one of the most popular egos we all have because everybody married one at some point.
Mm-hmm.
You marry your fear and you will gravitate towards your fear because you're still hurt.
Yeah.
If you weren't hurt, why would you have fear?
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Ow, oh, ow. Oh, I'm afraid I'm going to get hurt like this again, or I'm going to get hurt all over again, as if the first hurt somehow magically healed itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
You don't need fear.
No.
None of us do. None of us need the thought patterns that fear creates. And fear isn't actually a feeling. It's an energy that we give an identity to from a feeling we won't accept.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that you feel how that
Yeah,
feels?
yeah.
So when we have the feeling of fear, as men, we have been taught show fear or don't show fear.
Yeah.
I don't think I was ever told not to show fear or not to share fear or not to communicate my fear. I was never told that, but there was an ego on the inside of me that told me I couldn't.
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does. It does.
How about you? What's your experience when it comes to fear?
I was told to not show it. And even as an adult, with my jobs and some of my hobbies, I got into martial arts and fought for a few years, and you were told don't show fear in the ring. So you don't. You go in there stone cold with one thing in mind, and you do your best to do it.
We have some stuff from the live chat. Let's hear some of this. Lack of energy exchange caused the ego to kick in. Yeah, I've seen that. Hello, Sherry D. Hello, Stacy. Orion, ha ha ha. I'm here after a fight with my husband. It's been a day. Oh, hi, Clinton Lee. Yeah, glad to have taught this live. I have learned you get what you get and you don't get upset while simultaneously never experiencing anyone actually asking me how I felt. So I learned to live with not asking myself what I want. How about not only did you not ask yourself what you want, where would you have learned to ask yourself how you feel? Oh, this hits. It's really, really powerful to do this one particular thing. And this is the reason I wanted to go live today, actually. When it comes to your feelings, you and I were talking this morning, we were just kind of really in that feeling.
Yeah.
And you felt the energy exchange of what it's like to be sitting in your hurt and then isolate yourself and then cut everybody off and think that somehow, some way you get to still tell yourself the story of how your feelings don't matter. Yeah. I've talked about understanding and connection. They don't mix.
No.
The reason why is because understanding is the thought process. Connection is a feeling.
Yeah.
So when it comes to feelings that you need connection in, when you're sitting in your feelings and you're feeling like you need to get away from everybody, what should you do? And what is your ego telling you to do? And this is where masculine energy is grasping all of its power, right? We tell ourselves, can't show this here.
Mm-hmm.
I have to hold back. Oh, I feel like crying. I'm not going to, right? We do that.
Yeah.
As a way to show what we call strength is actually weakness.
Yeah.
Why should you ever hold back your tears, your hurt? Is why we create anger as an ego.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
And what we want and what we need becomes obsolete.
Yeah.
And that the only way you're going to ever be able to communicate that is to be connected to your hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But you won't speak from your hurt, and you're mad at everybody around you because they don't know how hurt you are.
Yeah.
What kind of thinking does that do to you? Right? If you look at it, you literally need somebody outside of you to be pissed at you for a feeling you won't share with them.
Yeah. But even then, you still don't know why they're pissed at you.
No, this is the state of unconsciousness.
Yeah.
Because when you're not allowing yourself to be in your feelings, you pretty much have to live an unconscious life.
Mm-hmm.
And you've lived that way for so long, then you come into connection, and you're like, hey, whoa. And it's like you wake up for the first time and you're like, I feel things.
Mm.
But all those feelings you buried are starting to be dug up. You just don't see it. It's like a ticking time bomb, right? And at some point, you're going to be triggered back into what made you numb to those feelings in the first place.
Mm. Yeah.
And your thoughts, your ego is right there, right on time, because that's the device you've been using. And I want to call ego a device because it really is. It uses you. You don't use it, right? Thinking has never been set up to be anything more than a way that we can't be connected to each other.
Yeah.
Because what did they do before we could actually communicate with each other? They connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you and I, if we couldn't speak any language at all, and we both met up in the woods, and you hear my stomach growl, you'd be like, "Ooh," and then you hear your stomach growl. We both know we're hungry. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We pay attention to more of the sensing and less about what we think about it.
Mm.
And we go hunt for food.
Yeah.
And then other people would be, you see what I'm saying? It's like we've lost our ability to be indigenous beings on a planet that needs us to be indigenous to survive the planet and to fulfill the planet's destiny, because our planet is not actually about money.
No.
Our planet is not about our ego.
No.
Our planet is thriving because we're alive.
Mm-hmm.
But we're treating it like we all need to die.
Yeah.
So we just need to be less in our ego. More identification with the mind is not going to heal anything.
No, it doesn't.
It gives you a mental position, but when you're in a mental position, you're the furthest way away from connection.
Yeah.
And as long as you're defending your right to stay in thought, and you need to be right about what you think, you're only going to pay attention to the behaviors that make that. Sorry. You're only going to pay attention to thoughts that actually validate the thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So when it comes to, like, when you look at the love of your life, and you're in connection in that love of your life, you go to your head to try to identify with what you're calling the love of your life, but you're not letting yourself feel it, and you're wondering why they're going to look out for or go find somebody else, is because you're teaching them how to go look for somebody else because you're not there for the feeling. Yeah. You're in your head.
Yeah.
We should start talking about what teaches separation.
Right.
So you can stop teaching yourself that. You see the egos that get created from this, see it as big business. It's not doing anything but keeping the world in a disconnect, but at the same time not connecting us.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does that have to do with ego? Everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we do everything we can to stay in it. That's the bizarre thing.
I don't know if that's bizarre or it's just the ego's way of creating more aloneness.
Yeah, true.
You know, once we tell ourselves we're lonely, we have an identity to play.
Mm.
Once we tell ourselves we're alone, we have an identity to play.
Mm.
When you tell yourself you feel lonely or you feel sad, who do you let connect to you?
No one. Not even myself.
How do you tell? But you can tell people, I'm alone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And literally what you're telling them is, I need space.
Yeah.
Because that's what alone, the identity of your ego telling you to tell somebody you're alone, or you're a loner, or you need more time by yourself.
Mm.
How's that ever going to get you connected to?
It doesn't. And for me personally, I've identified as a loner practically my whole life. And for me now, it's just so easy to go back to. Like what we were talking about this morning. You know, I've pretty much spent the first 3 months of this year pretty much by myself. Even though I've been around people, it was just easier for me to move back into that space that I already knew of being a loner. So, you know, yeah, for me, it's just been so easy to do. And then coming back to doing this, it's like, you know, honestly, when we first started talking this morning, it was like, fuck, I don't want to do this.
Sorry.
I knew I needed to. You know, I've pretty much stayed awake nearly all night, being totally nervous about what we were going to talk about this morning. Because I've put myself back into that space of I'm a loner. I don't need anybody around me.
What do you like about yourself when you're doing that? Isn't that interesting? There's like this empty space, and the ego's like, we don't like it, we just do it. Right? Yeah. That's literally the thought pattern and how it represents. Even when you look down, you were looking for the feeling to show up so you could talk about why it was such a grand experience to be alone.
Yeah.
And it's not a grand experience at all.
No.
So the ego that is proud of saying, hey, I'm a loner, I can handle the shit by myself, is also the one going, I don't know why I'm doing this.
Yeah. Yes. But the other side to that is that I found, because I didn't want to deal with my feelings, I went looking for feelings in other people. So I with deliberately, but without even knowing, went around looking for other people who had a similar story to mine, just so that I didn't have to be in my one.
Hence why people need relationship.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what it is. You just described it to a T. Connection, no? You need relationship to abandon connection.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's...
You need relationship to make sense of your disconnects.
Yeah.
Are you happier wearing a mask around people? Does that do anything for you?
No. It does for them more than it does for me.
They told you that.
No, but that's that thinking thing.
That's that ego that jumps in. No, they need me to be this.
Yeah.
It's about what they need. And you know what's interesting is you can see somebody, I had somebody earlier today, they said, well, I'm just thinking I should probably stay in the marriage for the kids. The kids really need their parents together. And I'm like, so the kids need to experience you completely disconnected from what makes you happy. So you're teaching your kids how to be disconnected from their happiness.
Yeah.
That's what staying in your marriage is going to give you, right? And they're like, what? And as they sat there, they started doing this. And then they looked at me and said, no. And I said, wait a minute. The ego jumps in as a way to make sense of what the body is going to reject.
Mm.
The body will, the universal language is, this isn't yes. This isn't. This is not yes. This is no.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we don't even slow down and be present enough to pay attention to our body's response to things we're asked.
Mm.
And when those words hit the body always tells the truth.
Yeah.
And we're afraid of it.
Yeah.
More times than not, that I've talked to people over the last few weeks, they're not connecting to this part of themselves because they were taught not to by ego,
Mm-hmm.
not by feeling. And then I'm going to sit in your feelings while you talk and pay attention to what you're feeling and pay attention to what your mind's doing to your feelings. Should be your first step. If you're watching this and you've not done anything else, pay attention to the way your body is responding to the way you think. Start there, because you can't start to identify with what your ego is doing to you until you do that. Then you can understand what I'm saying when I'm telling you feel one thing, but your mind is saying something else.
Yeah.
You won't even, you will have moments of clarity when you pay attention to what your body is saying. You will have no clarity if you're listening to the way you think. Nothing gets clear that way. Nothing. And it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to do in front of somebody. It's uncomfortable to do around a bunch of people. And it's what's worse is you've gotten comfortable doing that in an isolated area that you now have an identity called loner.
Mm.
And once you have that loner, you're on loan. And your feelings have to sit there and wait for you to return.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you need other people's feelings to keep offsetting what you're not letting yourself feel.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting, this ego. Let's see what they're saying on the message board here. Let's see. I feel you, Clinton. Hey, look at that. That's Allie D. Healing begin with your masculine powers to stand your grounds based on actions. The actions are the final performance of the energy exchange. Energy creates feelings. Feelings become triggers in you. Ego can protect you if you have boundaries, but ego can also harm. Masculine has choice to speak up or hide. Wait a minute. We were born through feeling. Let's stop. We have to stop, because you were in a belly as energy and created a body, and that body did not learn thinking first. And if you're not paying attention to that, it had nothing to do with masculine and feminine, has everything to do with what you felt in the body. You were inside a feminine body as masculine, or you were in a feminine body as feminine. Either way, you felt things first. You didn't think about them, and you didn't have an ego.
Mm.
You're taught to have an ego. And when you have feelings, the thinking doesn't happen first.
Yeah.
It never did. Your feelings came first. You were a baby. As a baby, you would cry, you would scream, you would sleep, you would laugh, all of these little things that we think we're doing by telling ourselves that thinking comes before feeling is bullshit. You are not going to heal anything believing the bullshit. But if you have an ego that is being challenged by what I'm saying, good. Feel what I'm saying. Your feelings matter more than your thinking. Where masculine or feminine ego makes no difference. Your feelings always come first.
Mhm.
The way you think about your feelings is the furthest point away from your feelings. you don't let yourself accept what you feel, because where would you have learned that?
Mhm.
Masculine or feminine, ego is not designed to ever let you really translate what you feel. It's basically finding a way to not let you feel anything.
Yeah. It's the Band-Aid.
It is the Band-Aid, but I think what's more painful is we disconnect from our pain because our thinking does that.
Mm.
Thinking can't feel anything. Ego can't feel anything.
No.
Ego can translate what it's trying to tell you you feel, but that's just residual effect of something you've never really healed in the first place.
Mhm.
When you get hurt, whether you're as a child, you used to be able to get up, pay attention to the hurt for a second, and you'd give all your energy to it, and it's like the hurt went away.
Mm.
As you get older, you let yourself bleed all over the place, don't you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right. And your thinking is like, oh, I'm gonna have to do something about this. Right. Feeling is in this connection with her. We both see that our egos still do a lot to our feelings.
Yeah.
And there was a time where we actually realized that that's what was making us go like this, was not the feeling, but our thoughts about that feeling.
Yeah.
If you've never let anybody be there for your hurt, not your mama, not your daddy, or they just weren't there because of them, why would you trust connection?
Yeah.
So when you're trying to tell somebody something about what energy does, realize your energy, their energy, and they're thinking they don't have control over, because that's already ingrained in them to think instead of feel.
Yeah.
We're men and women, and we're all taught to think, and it's never connected us, not even a little. Thank you for taking this time with me today. I can't wait for part 2. And I guess in part 2, maybe we should have some more volunteers. And we're probably going to do this as an impromptu, but if you're available to actually jump in and have the conversation, awesome. Just send an email. Let's get you in here. I'll send you an email right before we jump on, because we're probably going to do a few more of these. But I am going to be back in Soul Chat next Wednesday. We'll do one then. And I guess we're going to, if you'd like to be a part of that, please send an email, relationshipreinvent@gmail.com. You can also, if you just need to get something off your chest today, it kind of spiked something in you, or you want something to let me and Clinton know about it. Clinton, where can they find you? How can they email
You
you?
can find me on Facebook. I'm the only Clinton Somner on Facebook in the whole world.
Awesome. You can email. But yes, we're going to be doing Soul Chat next week. Still working on what that actual topic looked like, but I noticed that Clinton said ego. And then, of course, today we really kind of jumped into that. What you think should matter way less than what you feel.
Yeah.
Stay connected to each other. And don't forget to hit subscribe and like if this did anything for you. We love you guys.